So hello world, my name is Amelia and welcome back to another one of my videos. Um, I don't remember if I did my last video down here, but anyways, this is my office again. Really hoping to get this back in order, but I'm kind of getting really tired of some things that I don't know what it is. I'm just so worn out and so groggy. And I mean, even though like I'm glad I got the medication I got because it does really help me kickstart my day and get moving. But anyways, point is, for this video in particular, I want to try to at least kind of do a little bit of a hybrid. I'm going to give a little update on something that's happened to me recently, as well as share some of my thoughts about other transgender individuals who are going through this, because you know those are the kind of things that I guess would interest the kind of viewership I have. And yes, I will be getting to that IPSY in due time. I actually have my next CNA exam tomorrow, the second one, and I think there's like 5 of them in total, roughly. So anyways, that will be interesting. Still haven't got any news on the state exam, even though I'm still like, apparently now I'm hearing rumors that it might end up getting, Missouri is trying to have the examination process like switched over to a third-party company. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. But I'm like, that even more so now tells me that if we're gonna have a third-party company coming in to test us, that they need to be, oh, excuse me, they need to be accommodating people with some disorders. And not to mention, I'm really hoping that we get a quiet testing environment, because that's something I didn't get in the first test. And I mean, I was even there for class last week and understood it. Anyways, enough with the ranting. So today I went out to lunch with my family. And afterwards, during lunch I had asked my mom about my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. And, you know, because I haven't talked to them in a long time. They have actually been, they were down here in KC a little over a year ago, roughly. And it was awkward, because I do realize that my mom had a little bit of a conversation with my grandma prior to me, because I went over to my parents' house to say hi, because I hadn't seen my grandparents since at least like 2016, 2015. Yeah, like 2015 sometime. So I went over there to see them, and it was obvious as I walked in with the way my mom, just myself, with the way my mom and my grandma were sitting on the living room couch, that they had been basically talking about me behind my back, which is the kind of thing that does make it kind of uncomfortable, is when you know people are talking behind your back about your decisions and stuff like that, when you're kind of like, you know, I would be perfectly okay if you were just including me in these conversations. Well, hello, cat. Because, you know, I realize they're difficult, sort of uncomfortable conversations to have, and I have attempted to have such conversations with my parents, you know, throughout the last while. And I don't know, something that's definitely really uncomfortable for me is when, you know, especially 2.5 years ago when I first came out to my parents, they didn't understand. Matter of fact, it was a very disagreeable conversation. Most everything that I could try to present to them, they didn't want to listen. They tried to always rebuttal it with information left and right. I mean, especially in the very beginning, I was getting rebuttaled with information that was definitely not, basically, let's say, unverifiable sources. They were quoting things from um, places that I was kind of like, you're going to need to show me those resources that supposedly where you're learning about transgenderism. Not to mention, I'm like, why don't you at least hear? I was a little upset that they didn't want to hear out any of my sources. So, anyways, that was especially upsetting. Yeah, and like matter of fact, one of their quoted sources in the very beginning was, oh shoot, who is that guy's name? Walt, whatever his name is. I know Walt, cannot remember his last name. Anyways, he is a a detransitioner, one of a very early one from like the 60s or 70s, and his story is always constantly been used as a way to try to prove that transgenderism is not a thing. I think matter of fact, I talked about it a little bit in a previous video. So, anyways, after I had talked to them in a subsequent visit, they ended up, they're like, oh, okay, we understand, that's not such an important thing. I mean, it's been a very interesting journey with my parents, for sure. I think they're getting a little better at recognizing what I have been trying to tell them, is that, look, this is really me, I'm actually better, I mean, this is exactly what I had been looking for all my life, and I mean, and that's something I do want to say, is I think I've done I have to kind of give myself a pat on the back sometimes, because I'm kind of like, be proud of myself, be excited that I have actually been able to do as well as I have. I mean, here I am sitting before you today, and I've had my bottom surgery, I've had my brow shaved, which I have to say has been a huge change in how I see myself. I mean, my jawline kind of bothers me, especially where my jaw comes down here, but it's really not even that bad. It's something that will be down the road. The main point is I think they have been starting to notice the improvements in me. I've even been making more of now that COVID is starting to lighten up, making a much more bigger effort of going to church and so forth. So I think that's making some of their changes. Matter of fact, I think my dad is, because we always joked, as I hit the desk, we've always joked when I was growing up that my dad had gender confusion. That was way prior to, like, pretty early before even I understood what transgenderism was. We made a joke about it because he would always misgender our cats, and even several times he would even misname me and my siblings, and like I think there was a couple times that he even got boy and girl names crossed over, which was kind of a weird thing. But anyways, I always made that joke with him, and I think actually to my benefit, because he's always kind of had a slip up every once in a while. He's actually, I'm not exactly too sure because I'm not always on the search for it, but I think he's might have gotten it right by accident, and not because he's trying, but because I have made enough improvement in myself that he sees me and he's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. He's starting to get used to it. And I knew that this was kind of coming, that there was a possibility that I was getting to a point that, and it's what I was hoping even for myself with like getting my brow shaved, it was going to be the kind of thing that, because we have an internal gendering of individuals, I would hope that my outward expression would start, they can't ignore it forever to the point that it starts influencing the way they see me. So if he gets more comfortable with the idea that he's got 3 daughters and not 2, it might change. So like I think he might even like slipped up today. which I wasn't sure, but that's beside the point. Anyways, they've kind of gotten a little better. Like, I don't feel like it's as uncomfortable. I still can't have conversations with them because I'll bring up some things and they just kind of, kind of like get quiet about when I try to bring up things I find funny and they know where it's going. Um, anyways, on my, now kind of to the point I was trying to make, look at me, I just spent like 8 minutes on something that was not that big of an issue. I mean, still interesting, I guess. Anyways, on my way home, I called my grandma up. I haven't talked to her, like I said, I hadn't seen her since 2015, and she was here last year, and I could tell from the way my mom had, the way it looked when I walked into the door last year, they had been talking. Which is not usually a good thing because my mom's side of the family is very much a grapevine of gossip. Anyways, I just, in my heart, being really distant from my grandparents who still live up in Chicago, it was really hard for me to cope with that distance. I had I had an aunt and two cousins reach out to me in the last couple years and tell me how much they supported me and how much they wanted to be still a part of my life. And like, even my one cousin sitting there telling me, oh, it makes all sense now, like why, this, like when you were 5 and we'd play house and you always wanted to play the mom. She's like, it makes sense now. And that's important. It's very, it's very encouraging to me. Anyways, I've been wanting to reach out. Look at that, my necklace fell on my shirt. I wanted to reach out to my grandma and I wanted to just have a conversation because, so I had a nickname growing up. And my grandma was the biggest one to use the nickname. I mean, she was the one who gave it to me. It wasn't a nickname I cared about. I think, matter of fact, my grandpa and my uncle even nicknamed me Noel because it rhymed with my birth name. And then, yeah, my grandma's nickname for me was taking the first 3 letters of my birth name and the first 3 letters of my middle name. So, I could tell right away when I walked into my parents' house over a year ago that it was uncomfortable. Because I think my mom was talking about the whole fact that I don't like to be called my birth name and all those things. And she definitely was doing her best to... My grandma was basically on her best behavior, but it definitely made it a very uncomfortable situation. But the main point is that I called her up on the way home today, and I actually tried calling her yesterday. She didn't answer. I didn't leave a voicemail. I was just like, I would like to have her pick up, not be calling me back or something like that. And she picked up, and I said, "Hey, Grandma, it's your grandchild from Kansas City." And she was like, "Oh, which one?" And I was like, Amelia. And she's like, and surprisingly, it actually clicked pretty fast with her who it was, which is great. I mean, I'm glad it wasn't like all of a sudden it turned into a very uncomfortable thing when I had to explain that. We talked a little bit. We updated each other on a little bit of information, things going on. We ended up talking for over an hour. I got home and like sitting in the driveway like a goof. But the main point is, I told my grandma, I said, look, one of the reasons I wanted to call you is tell you I love you. I appreciate you. I do not want to push you out of my life. I don't want what I am doing to be a burden or a barrier between us, because family comes first. And, and of course that's a two-way road. It's very difficult to put family first when the rest of the family doesn't put you first. You know, but anyways, that's just general relationship advice. So I said to her, I said, I love you. I know when you were here a year ago, it was kind of a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. I said, because you didn't, I'm sure you didn't want to exactly say anything that might hurt me or offend me, because I definitely know there is a lot of people in the transgender community that get very offended at certain words and things like that, which I honestly think is ridiculous. Anyways, but that's a topic for another time. So I just told her how much I really appreciate her, and then I finally said, look, I wanted to also let you know that I was okay with you still using the nickname you gave me as a kid. Even though that nickname is like directly taken out of a name I do not want to be called anymore, it's okay with me. And I said, I am not making that exception for anyone else. It is literally for you only. Because I want you to feel comfortable around me. I want you to feel like you can talk to me and conversate about my life and what's going on. And she did get a little real with me for a second and told me, because I told her, I said, I don't want this to be a wedge. And I definitely want to talk to you. If you have any questions, feel free to have these conversations, because I definitely am of the opinion that I am one of the more open-minded people out there, trans women out there, which is kind of an odd thing to think when most of the trans community accuses everyone else for not being open-minded. Anyways, she told me she very much appreciated it, and matter of fact, she said it felt like it lifted a burden off her shoulders. And it actually, funny enough, it did more than I even expected, because she started being a little more conversative, and I think it was because me saying that helped clear the air to be like, look, it's okay if you trip up. I even told her, I said, I know at least for myself that even getting it right once can forgive dozens of times you've gotten it wrong. I can forgive, I can forget. It's just as long as I see effort and love being put into it, that's fine. The problem is some people don't use it out of love. Sometimes people actually slip up, and it's more of a hurt, it's more of a stab, it's not just a slip up. But getting it right is so euphoric. And a matter of fact, I have to say, just in general, where I have gotten in 2.5 years is very much euphoric. Especially considering I get gendered correctly a whole lot more than I ever expected, even though I can look in the mirror and still be like, oh, I still look like a guy. But sometimes I can look in the mirror and be like, this is really freaky. Anyways, point being, she told me that was really good, and I then went ahead and self-volunteered myself to fill her in about why I did this. I told her how, in something that I said that I felt was really good, and I do plan to talk more about my spiritual faith, which is very important to my gender identity, being that it had a lot to do with my decision to go on this route. But again, that's a topic for another time. I told her, I said, I feel like my name is a covenant. I made a covenant with God over my name. Because my name, the biblical meaning of Amelia, is the work of God. And I also chose the middle name Sarah because I wanted to make a declaration like Sarah, Abraham's wife. God made a promise and he will deliver. I was making covenant and declaration on myself when I picked my name. And that's why I also told her, I said, it's important to me that my name is used because it feels like there is a recognition of the spiritual struggle I went through to even just start this journey. I mean, there was a spiritual change I had to go through before I could even think of starting this process. But again, we'll save that for later. So point being is she told me it helped her, and then I also went ahead and told her like some of the things I struggled with as a kid, and I mean I didn't even have to tell her that much. And then towards the end there, she said to me, she said, you know what? It was funny because even at one point she said, you know, want to let you know we still love you and everything. And she even slipped up and she said, you're gonna always be our grandson. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, grandchild. But the point is she ended the conversation by telling me, she said, I had no idea that you had that hard of a childhood. She said, I had no idea that you were struggling like that. I had no idea that you on a daily basis were having a difficulty. She said it was just completely unknown to me. And honestly, that meant a lot to me. Because in a lot of ways, I wish my own mom would say that to me. And it kind of goes to some of the relationship, the personality things I've developed that I think I very heavily have picked up off my parents. It's kind of, not talking about things that might be uncomfortable, or having a lot of defense barriers put up. I mean, I picked up on anger problems from my dad growing up because it was all I thought that guys were allowed to express. And it turned me into a terrible person. But of course, my dad kind of got those angers a little more under control as I got older, but that didn't mean anything to me. The point is there was things that I picked up from my parents, and they used it again on me when I came out, because it was things like having an argument instead of just saying I'm sorry. And it's something that I have tried working on myself, because it's funny how you can hear principles that are good, and good ways to talk to people, and good ways to treat people. But then those principles, especially when it comes in a parental environment, you're taught as a kid about them. But then those principles are things your own parents don't follow, which, again, I'm talking about with parenting, that's important. But just a simple answer turns away wrath. That is a virtue my mom has taught me growing up. And I've tried using it more and more, especially in my 20s, and it did help a lot. A lot of times if somebody is trying to chew me out, like for example, like just did the other day, I was getting chewed out at work during that second time I got written up. And I just let him finish, and then I said, okay. Then I spoke. I mean, even the Bible says that people who are listeners are wise. And I used to have a lot of ranting, talking, and I still have that problem. I'm trying to work on that, but I do know that. I definitely feel like what was said to me by my grandma was something I've wanted to hear from my own mom for a long time. I am sorry, and I had no idea. Because here's the thing, my mom did come to a point where she was like, I never thought you struggled with that stuff. I never thought you had problems with your gender as a child. She said, and she even kind of makes comments like, oh, I wish we knew when you were 11 and 12. And I'm like, you know what? You didn't know because I didn't feel safe to share it then. I felt like I was an outcast. I felt like nobody would accept what I was going through, especially when I didn't even know what I was going through. There was not a word for it when I was young. You would laugh at the person who was non-gender conforming on the TV. Do you think that made me feel better? Do you think that made me feel like I was in a safe space? No. Same goes for my grandma, going over to my grandma's house and having those feelings, and I didn't feel like I could tell anyone. outside the scope of this video once again. But just hearing that acknowledgement of, I had no idea. And matter of fact, she went on to say, I'm sorry. And it's not even, it doesn't even have to be a sorry of, oh, sorry, I was more reason, oh, I'm sorry. Because I think even my own mom, she won't necessarily say sorry to me because somehow she feels like that's a mission of guilt. I mean, there is, and I mean, this is a different situation, but it's like, it's important, like, if you get in a car accident, not to say sorry to the other person, because they might try to use that against you in a court of law, saying you admitted guilt, even though, so that's just our messed up legal system. I don't need it to be an admission of guilt. Just simple, I'm sorry that you struggled. And I mean, my mom has kind of semi-gotten there. But she's definitely one of those people that doesn't want to talk about it. She wants to, I feel like, yeah, it's a thing of, let's stop going over the past and brush it under the rug. And that's fine, in my opinion. But when you do that, you need to change. Not acknowledging the hurt and just wanting to not talk about it and not say sorry, brush it under the rug, and then go on and then give me tons of struggle with acceptance isn't going to fix it. And especially when it wasn't oh, hey, it's going to take us time to adjust to your new name and pronouns. No, it's, oh no, we're just absolutely refusing to accept this. That just reinforces all the childhood hurt. When I came out and I felt rejected once again, what was the biggest struggle of all was how it made me feel like the devil was telling me, see, I told you they would not accept it. That is the most important thing, and I guess I am kind of getting a little bit of my spiritual on this. When you do not accept it, when you do not do what your child is asking you to do, something as simple as changing their name and pronouns, in their own head, it's opening a door for the devil to say to them, see, I told you they wouldn't accept it. It allows those thoughts, it allows the depression, it allows the anxiety to come in because you're proving to them what they were afraid of happening. But anyways, I'm going to finish this because I first meant to do 10 minutes, and I was like, well, I could do 20, and I'm it's turning into another 30-minute video. It felt really good to hear that, even if it was from my grandma. And I told her, I said, I want to come up in Chicago and visit you sometime. I want to talk. And I told her, I said, because the most important thing of all to me is that I get to be my true self. And that's why, it does make me happy that, today, going to church, I wore a really beautiful yellow skirt, which I changed into shorts, but this is the same shirt. I had this gorgeous yellow skirt, and I was proud of it, and even when we went out to eat, I sat there next to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, do you like this skirt? I'm like, it's so cool, I got it at a thrift store. And of course she's like, yeah, that's cool. That's the uncomfortable conversations, because it's so different from the way she treats my sisters. My sister can be like, oh, hey, you like this skirt? She's like, yeah, that's cool. That's the tone that still makes me uncomfortable around her. But anyways, not getting back into the conversation, but what was said on the phone with my grandma was absolutely amazing and really good for me. So I got that test tomorrow, got class on Wednesday. divorce is coming along, that's going to be a whole nother subject too. Because I even talked to my grandma about my divorce too. Anyways, I'm going to leave this video here. I hope everyone who's watching is having a wonderful, beautiful day, because you're all amazing. Everyone is unique in their own ways, you know. Ooh, everyone is special. So, I will see you all later in another video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. I don't know, should I put click, like, subliminal messaging? Anyways, thanks for watching. See you all later now.